Did you know that the initial cut of this very episode featured a protracted subplot involving Quahog's mayor attempting to establish a municipal drone delivery service for baked goods? A storyline ultimately axed due to budget constraints and a bizarre incident involving a runaway croissant. It's a forgotten footnote, much like the deeper philosophical underpinnings of this seemingly straightforward Family Guy premiere. This season opener isn't just another collection of gags, it's a deliberate, albeit chaotic, examination of societal anxieties, the erosion of innocence, and the desperate, often clumsy search for control in an increasingly unpredictable world. It acts as a meta-commentary on the show's own longevity, questioning the very good old-fashioned values it purports to uphold, while simultaneously deconstructing them. The question we must ask isn't, "Is this funny?" but rather, what does this particular brand of absurdity reveal about our collective subconscious and the fractured nature of modern parenthood? Prepare yourself, because we're about to unearth a deeply unsettling, yet undeniably brilliant critique of familial obligation and the perils of unchecked entitlement, delivered through a haze of suburban ennui and questionable life choices. Before we plunge headfirst into the thematic abyss, consider this your intellectual lifeline. Hit that subscribe button. We're not just dissecting jokes here, we're excavating the cultural zeitgeist, one animated episode at a time. If you're ready for a commentary that digs deeper than a hastily thrown punchline, you're in the right place. This episode, deceptively titled Family Guy Season 24 Episode 1, opens not with a bang, but with a rather quaint, almost ironic musical overture that immediately establishes a dissonance between the show's traditionalist lyrical framing and the ensuing narrative chaos. It's a clever, if subtle, gambit, foreshadowing the episode's core conflict, the collision of idealized notions of family and morality with the messy, often illegal, realities of modern suburban life. The introduction of Quahog's first recreational dispensary isn't merely a plot device, it's a bold statement about the evolving social landscape and the character's haphazard attempts to navigate it. Peter's initial resistance, followed by his swift, pragmatic acceptance, perfectly encapsulates his character, a man perpetually caught between outdated moralizing and immediate, often selfish gratification. The ensuing crowd, a surprisingly diverse tapestry of individuals sporting blonde dreadlocks, serves as a visual metaphor for the show's eclectic and often contradictory comedic sensibilities, highlighting the absurdity inherent in attempts to categorize or control societal trends. Cleveland's observation about the rascals among the white community, juxtaposed with the perceived nonchalance of the black community, hints at the episode's exploration of cultural perceptions and internal community dynamics, even within the exaggerated world of Quahog. This isn't just about marijuana, it's about the porous boundaries of social acceptability and the inherent humor found in the collision of subcultures. The initial scene with Susie and her offer of reusable bags, while seemingly mundane, subtly introduces the theme of community engagement and responsible living, a stark contrast to the indulgence that follows. Peter's dismissal of her offer, his focus solely on his own grocery unloading, underscores his self-absorption. The ensuing exchange with Lois about cast-iron skillets, a seemingly trivial domestic spat, is a masterclass in character-driven humor, revealing their deeply ingrained yet fundamentally mismatched domestic philosophies. Lois, the pragmatic homemaker, is juxtaposed with Peter's almost comically inept understanding of basic culinary principles. This domestic friction, however, is quickly overshadowed by Stewie's escalating fascination with Oreos, a seemingly innocent childlike desire that quickly devolves into a commentary on delayed gratification and the allure of instant pleasure. His pronouncement that Oreos are for rewarding good behavior in developmentally slow adults is a darkly humorous jab at both childhood innocence and the infantilization of adults, a recurring motif throughout the episode. The narrative then pivots to a bizarre, almost Lynchian sequence involving Stewie's existential musings on being the mailman, a fragment of a narrative that hints at a deeper, perhaps subconscious, exploration of identity and purpose, a theme that will resonate later. The locking away of the Oreos, a simple act of parental control, precipitates a cascade of events, leading Stewie down a rabbit hole of escalating anxiety, amplified by the innocent strains of The Wheels on the Bus twisted into a macabre prophecy. The song's transformation into a prelude to death, with the lunatic in his head, is a potent depiction of how abstract fears can manifest in the most vulnerable minds, especially when amplified by external factors.
This entire sequence is a powerful, albeit disturbing, illustration of how seemingly innocuous childhood experiences can be warped into something deeply unsettling when filtered through a lens of heightened emotional states, particularly when exacerbated by the very substances meant to quell such anxieties. The episode masterfully employs this internal turmoil as a springboard for the main plot, setting the stage for Stewie's descent into a more adult crisis, fueled by a misunderstanding of societal norms and the consequences of illicit exploration. The episode's comedic architecture is as meticulously crafted as it is deceptively simple, a hallmark of shows that have mastered the art of blending absurdity with relatable human foibles. Take, for instance, the initial scene at the recreational dispensary. The setup is straightforward. Peter, despite his initial opposition, is now presiding over Quahog's first legal drug establishment. The humor doesn't stem from the legality itself, but from the immediate, almost jarring observation of the clientele. The sheer number of white guys with blonde dreadlocks, and subsequently black ladies with the same hairstyle, isn't just a visual gag. It's a subtle commentary on cultural appropriation and the evolving aesthetics of subcultures. The punchline, delivered through Cleveland's awkward explanation of these individuals being considered big-time rascals in the white community, subverts expectations. Instead of a simple observational joke, it morphs into a quasi-sociological observation, highlighting the arbitrary nature of social labels and the absurdity of attempting to police personal style. The pacing here is crucial. The slow reveal of the diverse clientele, coupled with Cleveland's hesitant delivery, allows the audience to process the visual and then the implied commentary, building to the punchline. Following this, we encounter Stewie's obsession with Oreos. The setup is his fervent desire for the cookies, presented as a childlike craving. The execution, however, takes a sharp turn into dark humor when Peter declares they are, quote, for rewarding good behavior in developmentally slow adults, unquote. This is a masterful use of subversion. We expect a standard parental reprimand or a childish tantrum, but instead we get a pointed, albeit inappropriate, characterization that lands with the force of unexpected truth. The pacing here is rapid fire. The setup is brief, the punchline lands immediately, and the payoff is the audience's shocked laughter at the sheer audacity of the statement.
It's a joke that relies on the audience's understanding of Stewie's precocious nature and Peter's often inappropriate directness. Then there's the chilling transformation of the wheels on the bus. The setup is innocent enough. Stewie is in distress, and music is suggested as a remedy. The execution is where the genius lies. The familiar tune is gradually warped, the lyrics morphing from childlike innocence to existential dread, culminating in the terrifying pronouncement, "The lunatic is in my head, and very soon we'll all be dead." The payoff isn't laughter, but a visceral jolt of unease. This sequence is a triumph of sonic and lyrical deconstruction. The pacing is deliberately slow, allowing the dread to build organically. The simple, repetitive melody of the children's song makes its perversion all the more unsettling. It's a perfect example of how Family Guy can weaponize nostalgia and innocence to create moments of genuine psychological horror, making the subsequent plot developments all the more impactful. The scene where Joe Griffin apprehends Stewie at school offers a different kind of comedic rhythm. The setup is the discovery of Stewie being high. The execution, however, is Joe's lengthy, rambling anecdote about his ziplining accident in Costa Rica, complete with irrelevant details about carabiners and camera policies. This is a prime example of comedic digression used for character building and absurdity. Joe's attempt to contextualize the severity of Stewie's offense by comparing it to his own traumatic experiences, while well-intentioned, serves only to highlight his own peculiar worldview and Peter's general incompetence. The pacing is molasses slow, a deliberate contrast to the urgency of Stewie's situation. The payoff is the audience's exasperation and amusement at Joe's inability to stay on topic, a classic sitcom trope elevated by the sheer absurdity of his comparisons. Finally, consider the scene where Lois is forced to undergo mandatory sexual harassment training. The setup is her desperate need to get Stewie back, leading her to complete the classes. The execution is the false true question. It's okay to slap a man's bottom if he knows you. Lois's confident yet incorrect response, "That's gotta be true," is the comedic engine. The payoff is the immediate correction, false, delivered with a deadpan finality. This joke works on multiple levels. It satirizes corporate HR training, highlights Lois's desperation overriding her common sense, and delivers a quick, sharp punchline.
The pacing is brisk, the setup is minimal, and the punchline lands with immediate impact, leaving the audience with a shared understanding of the ridiculousness of the situation. Later, the scene where Stewie discusses his anxieties with Lois, revealing his desire to kill her, is a profound deconstruction of familial bonds. The setup is Lois trying to connect with Stewie after his ordeal. The execution is Stewie's raw, unfiltered confession of wanting to end her life. Lois's initial confusion, followed by her surprisingly insightful analysis that he wanted to kill the part of himself that scares him most, is the transformative moment. This isn't just a joke, it's a deeply resonant psychological exploration. The pacing is deliberate and somber, allowing the weight of Stewie's words to settle. The payoff isn't laughter, but a moment of profound emotional connection and understanding, rare in the show's typical comedic structure, demonstrating a level of maturity in its thematic exploration that often goes unnoticed beneath the surface-level gags. It challenges the audience to see the complex inner lives of these characters, even the youngest and most outwardly innocent among them, and questions the very nature of love and inherited trauma within a family unit, prompting a reconsideration of what it means to truly love someone to the moon and back, when that love is born from such complex and potentially destructive origins. Now, let's delve into the intricate psychological tapestry woven throughout this episode, examining the characters not as mere playthings of narrative convenience, but as complex beings grappling with their own internal demons. Lois, the matriarch, presents a fascinating case study in the frustrated archetype. Her overwhelming desire to regain custody of Stewie, coupled with the profound realization of her own suppressed wildness, suggests a dormant id finally breaking free. The strictures of motherhood and societal expectation have seemingly molded her into an uptight, rule-abiding figure, yet the revelation that she once participated in collegiate escapades like Jimmy Crack Corn on bathroom sinks hints at a buried reservoir of spontaneity. Her internal conflict is stark, the responsible parent versus the free spirit, a battle exacerbated by Peter's consistent abdication of his paternal duties and her own perceived lack of agency. The moment she vocalizes her desire to kill Stewie, not out of malice, but as a projection of her own fears and a desperate attempt to sever what she perceives as a toxic inherited trait, is a testament to the deep psychological turmoil brewing beneath the surface.
This isn't simply a mother struggling with her child, it's a woman confronting her own mortality and the potential for darkness within her lineage. Stewie, the precocious infant, continues to evolve beyond the typical infant archetype. His burgeoning sentience, amplified by the shared experience of intoxication, allows for an unprecedented level of self-awareness and existential angst. His initial terror and subsequent philosophical musings on his own mortality and his relationship with Lois are a core of his developmental arc in this episode. He grapples with the realization that his existence is intertwined with Lois's, and that his own darker impulses might be an echo of her own suppressed desires. This leads to a fascinating Oedipal undertone, where the desire to kill his mother is less about matricide and more about a profound internal struggle to differentiate himself and escape a perceived inherited darkness. His final pronouncements about shared special moments and his new understanding of adult anxieties suggest a nascent transition from a purely egocentric infant to a more complex relational being, albeit one still navigating the treacherous waters of his own intellect and emotional capacity. Peter, the titular family guy, remains a steadfast embodiment of the oblivious id. His consistent inability to comprehend the gravity of situations, particularly Stewie's predicament, underscores his arrested development and profound lack of empathy. His coping mechanism is a relentless pursuit of immediate gratification, as evidenced by his casual consumption of recreational drugs and his complete disregard for the rules Lois attempts to implement. His interactions with Lois, particularly her candid admission of feeling unloved and his uncharacteristic agreement, reveal a disturbing lack of genuine connection. However, even within this caricature of irresponsibility, there's a subtle sociological commentary. His reliance on the drug dispensary, a nascent symbol of Quahog's evolving and arguably degenerate social landscape, positions him as a product of his environment, a creature of habit in a world that increasingly caters to vice. His role is to provide a constant, unchanging anchor of incompetence, highlighting the familial dysfunction by sheer contrast to the more emotionally turbulent arcs of Lois and Stewie. Chris, often a periphery character, offers a poignant, albeit brief, glimpse into the long-term consequences of trauma.
Lois's casual observation that he has an escalator head vibe due to her falling down an escalator while pregnant with him is a darkly humorous yet effective illustration of how familial accidents and past traumas can imprint upon future generations. His current state of not thriving is presented as a direct, albeit unconscious, consequence of this early life event, suggesting a deterministic element in his character that remains underdeveloped but present. This serves as a subtle reminder that the episode's central crisis with Stewie is not an isolated incident, but rather a symptom of a larger, more pervasive pattern of dysfunction and inherited anxieties within the Griffin household. Now, let us turn our critical gaze to the masterful craftsmanship on display, the elements that elevate this particular installment beyond the usual episodic fare. The episode's meta-narrative is particularly robust, beginning with the iconic theme song that ironically sets up a world devoid of the very good old-fashioned values it extols. This immediately establishes a tone of satirical detachment. The introduction of Quahog's first recreational dispensary is a prescient commentary on evolving societal norms and the normalization of substance use, cleverly mirroring the show's own journey into increasingly daring thematic territory. The Dateline segment, with Joe Swanson as the hapless narrator attempting to report on Stewie's supposed delinquency, is a brilliant piece of intertextual referencing, playing on the dramatic tropes of true crime documentaries while simultaneously deconstructing Joe's own bureaucratic and emotionally stunted persona. His convoluted tangent about a ziplining accident in Costa Rica, complete with the absurd detail about 13-year-olds securing carabiners, is a masterclass in comedic digression and character revelation, showcasing a deep understanding of how to use genre parodies for both humor and character insight. Furthermore, the subtle nod to Ben & Jerry's ice cream as a potential response to existential dread is a touch of whimsical, almost poetic observation, connecting moments of profound unease with everyday comforts. The visual gag of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Witness Protection is a prime example of surrealist humor, taking a mundane breakfast item and imbuing it with an unexpected narrative weight, demonstrating the show's ability to find humor in the utterly absurd. However, no analysis would be complete without acknowledging the missteps, the moments where the narrative falters or the humor falls flat.
The pacing in the initial scenes at the dispensary feels somewhat sluggish, spending a bit too much time establishing a premise that, while relevant, doesn't quite spark with the immediate energy one expects. The white guys with blonde dreadlocks joke, while aiming for observational humor, veers into territory that feels slightly dated and lacks the sharp incisiveness the show is capable of. While the premise of Stewie being high at school is the catalyst for the episode's central conflict, the manner in which it's handled, particularly Joe's overly dramatic pronouncements, borders on melodramatic rather than comedic, especially when he contrasts it with his own experiences with 4 dead bodies from a ziplining accident. This comparison, while intended to be humorous through its absurdity, also feels a bit too self-referential and less organically integrated into the unfolding narrative. The introduction of the Capital Steps comedy troupe, while offering a tangential exploration of Joe's aspirations, feels like a narrative detour that doesn't significantly advance the core plot concerning Stewie. The resolution of Lois's parenting classes, while necessary for plot progression, is resolved with an almost abrupt convenience, especially given the high stakes established earlier. The gag involving Peter's alleged dad's version of parenting classes and his run-in with Stefan feels like filler, a tangential comedic bit that doesn't quite land with the impact of other jokes. Lastly, the execution of the 3 human poos on the lawn gag at the end, while intended as a callback to the previous night's debauchery, feels a tad gratuitous and serves more as a crude punchline than a meaningful narrative conclusion, hinting at a slight over-reliance on shock value in certain moments. In summation, this episode of Family Guy presents a complex and often profound exploration of familial dynamics, societal shifts, and the anxieties of burgeoning sentience. It masterfully blends biting satire with moments of unexpected psychological depth, particularly in its portrayal of Lois and Stewie's evolving relationship. While some comedic choices feel less refined and certain plot points arrive with a degree of contrivance, the episode's willingness to tackle themes of inherited trauma, personal agency, and the blurred lines of morality sets it apart. It is a testament to the show's enduring ability to surprise and provoke, even after so many seasons. My critical score for this episode is a solid 8.5 out of 10.
It is a must-watch for its incisive commentary on parenting and the existential quandaries of even the youngest among us. Ultimately, it proves that even within the seemingly chaotic and often crude world of Family Guy, profound truths about love, fear, and the messy business of being human can indeed be found, much like a surprising moment of clarity during a drug-induced epiphany.